A conversation with best-selling author Ridley Pearson. That's next on City Corner. I'm Steve Potter, and welcome to City Corner. Our guest today is Ridley Pearson. He's a New York Times best-selling author who happens to live in St. Louis. Ridley, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Steve.
I was wondering, I don't even know if you know the answer to this, how many other New York Times best-selling authors live in St. Louis?
I don't know the answer to that. I know some great authors live in St. Louis, John Lutz and among them, but Scott Phillips lives here. There's probably a dozen really good and well-published writers here. Mm-hmm. It's fun to have that in St. Louis, I think.
Well, we'll talk about this later in the program. You're not from St. Louis originally, but you do call it home now.
I do. I love it
here. You've got
here.
a family here and everything. We'll talk about that. You've written something like, is the number right, 48 novels?
48 novels, working on 49 and 50 and 51 as we speak.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it's really, I mean, I would never guess that. I would have guessed I've written about 6, but that's
You also, you've written several of those novels with humorist Dave Barry.
One of the most fun jobs I've ever had to co-write with a Pulitzer Prize winning humorist who happens to be the greatest guy on earth. That was quite a decade. We wrote for 10 years together.
Wow. And a novel that you both wrote, Peter and the Starcatchers, had the most Tony nominations ever, and I think ended up winning 5.
It did. It won 5. Most Tony nominations for a play ever. It won 5. It did a national tour that just concluded like 2 weeks ago.
Right. It came through St. Louis not too long ago.
Came through St. Louis. It's going to be all over the country now because now it goes licensed out to theaters all across the country. In fact, I get Google alerts every day. You know, opening here, opening there, opening. It's such a great show. It was such a fun book to do. And Jim Dale, who read the audio of the series, who also read Harry Potter, and won Best Audible Book of the Year for Peter and the Starcatchers and Peter and the Shadow Thieves and Peter and the Sword of Mercy, has a one-man act on Broadway. So it's like all come together in this wild ball of creativity.
Well, I know it's a great show, and I know you love it.
I do.
Can you see it too much for you personally? I mean, did you see it when it was in St. Louis?
I've seen, yeah, oh yes, absolutely. I've seen it over 25 times. And I've not reached my saturation point yet. It's funny because I saw one version of it at about 26, 27, somewhere in there, and I thought I could skip it now, but I don't want to. Many people who have seen it once go back to see it a second or third time. It's so fast and so funny. It's written by Rick Ellis, who did Jersey Boys, which is about to be a movie.
Right.
And Rick is so gifted and such a great guy.
Jersey Boys was great.
Yeah, Jersey Boys is amazing.
Yeah.
As is Peter and the Starcatchers. We were just so lucky. I mean, they were lucky that Dave and I had nothing to do with the play.
Is it hard? I want to talk about your new book if we ever get there. But is it hard? You know, you and Dave Barry wrote this novel that was turned into a play. So what kind of, maybe it depends on the project, but what kind of creative control do you have? I mean, once you sign it over, can someone else change it much? Or are you involved in the creative process at all?
They can change it, absolutely. Unless you're J.K. Rowling or at some level like that where you can get some kind of, and I'm not sure even then they actually give it to you. They might give it to you in name only. But for instance, I know John Green was on the set of Fault in Our Stars almost every day helping to shape that picture, which is probably why it came out well. Mm-hmm. With Dave and me, they very wisely made sure we had no creative control.
They banned you from Broadway?
They banned us from living. No, Disney was phenomenally, Disney Theatrics is who originally acquired this, and Tom Schumacher, the president, was incredibly generous with us, and I grew up outside of New York, and so I went to theater all the time, and I said, you know, I've never seen the process. Could I be a fly on the wall and watch this process? And he said, we would love to have you. We would love to have your comments. So they really let Dave and me see the whole, it took 7 years to get it going. And we were a part of it for all those 7 years, but not creatively. That was all their team. They would solicit our comments, and I'm sure to them they were totally off the wall. But what was really fun was to be able to be in on there was an original reading in Williamstown, Mass, in a bar. An empty bar on a Sunday morning. The next time we saw it, it was in the basement of a church in New York City, and we saw about 4 or 5 scenes that Rick had finally written. The next time we saw it was when it was workshopped, which I'd never been through, but it was workshopped in La Jolla, California. So Rick rewrote it every night for almost 5 weeks. Rewrote it every night, and the actors had to relearn the new script every morning.
Wow.
And it was performed in front of a live paying audience. It was an amazing experience.
Well, it paid off.
Yeah, yeah.
It seems to be doing
It did.
really well.
It's phenomenal.
Well, let's talk about your new book.
Oh, let's.
It's called The Red Room. It's I guess the third in a series you call the Risk Agent series.
With John Knox and Grace Chu. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me about those characters.
Well, they're of course, they've become really close to me now because I've been writing them for 4 years. Both of them are private operatives. There are a lot of corporate private security companies around the world. They work for one of these, but as freelancers, as do almost all. They work as contractors, basically.
Like in Iraq, which
Yes,
is what we're talking
which is
about.
where Knox originally drove trucks to resupply our troops in Iraq. Grace was a very ambitious Chinese national, ended up doing some graduate work in Southern California. And I taught over in Shanghai. I taught at the college level for a year. So I met all these young women who were just, they're brilliant, they're highly ambitious, and Grace became kind of a compilation of several of them.
Yeah, I read, I don't know if it's accurate, I read that it was something like you based Grace on the 70 young women that you
these
taught.
young women were amazing, and you know, I was at one of the best colleges in all of China, a university called Fudan, and even at Fudan in the wintertime, our schoolroom was unheated, so we all wore parkas and gloves while I taught creative writing in English. And these young ladies, of the 35 each semester, only 3 or 4 were men. All the rest were women.
Wow. So these characters are over in Iraq dealing with security, but this also involves art crime.
Yes, well, Red Room isn't about Iraq. Red Room is just about those characters. And in this novel, Grace and Knox are sent to Istanbul to broker the sale of a gray market antiquity. Not totally illegal, but maybe not totally on the up and up. And very shortly into it, they realize the buyer of that antiquity is traveling under false pretense and false passport and is very likely an Iranian nuclear scientist. And as we know, who read the papers, the Mossad, Israeli Mossad, has for years been allegedly assassinating Iranian nuclear scientists all over the globe. The minute they pop out of Iran, they end up dead. And these two are associated with this guy and what's going to happen to them. So it's kind of a nail-biting, very fast-moving, almost a spy novel set in Istanbul.
Another important character, Sarge.
Sarge is actually dear to my heart. Sarge was part of Knox's original work all those years ago in Iraq and in Kuwait. And he's kind of the quarterback of the team, always very trustworthy until the Red Room. And in the Red Room, it becomes unclear whether he is acting on behalf of the company or acting on behalf of his own moral compass.
So what is the art crime that's involved in this?
It's the sale of an antiquity.
One in particular?
One in particular, called the Harmodius, which was originally lost 3,000 years ago.
Is that a painting? Or?
It's a sculpture. It's a bronze sculpture, and it was lost in a war in Greece. And then it was so important to the Greek culture, they made these 2 copies. The copies themselves are worth about $10 million each. And the 2 originals have never been found. And in this book, the bust of one of the originals surfaces. Now, the reason I got into this is I love research, and I love telling true stories within my fiction. And my cousin is the director of exhibitions at the National Gallery in Washington, D.C. So he and I, and has been for 30 years, so he and I have always wanted to do some sort of art crime novel And it turns out that the theft and the resale of art in this country, in this world, is second only to drugs.
Well, you call it, or someone, I read somewhere they call it the stolen art, like the world's biggest museum.
Yeah. Well, it's billions of dollars a year. It's several billion, like $3 billion a year.
Selling stolen art.
Selling and buying stolen art and stealing art. And yet, only 5% are ever actually punished for this. So it's the most lucrative crime you can get into, basically.
Well, how many people write about that topic, stolen art? Not many.
I know one, and it's the Red Room. That's what fascinated me. I mean, if you want to be, it's second only to drugs. If you want to be a drug lord, your odds are something like 40% you're going to be busted and put away for life. If you steal and find a way to broker stolen art, 95% of those people get away with it because very few investigators are out in the field. Interpol has a handful, the FBI a handful, England a handful, but it isn't like there's hundreds and hundreds of people out there investigating these crimes because it's a white-collar crime. It really doesn't hurt anyone.
Well, when you were thinking of the idea for this book or talking to your publisher or however it is you do it, was it ever a hard sell? I want to write a book about, stolen art. They said, well, find something a little more sexy.
That's exactly right. I've wanted to do it, Steve, for 20 years. And when Knox and Grace came into it, Putnam heard the outline and said, this sounds like a terrific book because it's much less about the art. The art is the instigating moment. It gets these two into Istanbul, but then it's this guy they're with or trying to be with that becomes the center of all of this. And the nuances of several organizations like Mossad wanting to get close to this guy and Knox and Grace being in the middle of it. It's a real, I hope, fun, fast read.
Well, Ridley Pearson's newest novel is The Red Room, and we're going to come back after this break, and I've got questions about your musical career and your tree climbing. There are all sorts of things I've got.
Don't change the channel.
Don't change the channel. We'll be right back with Ridley Pearson after this.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
When you throw away money on wasted electricity, you're throwing away everything you could have bought with it. Saving energy saves you money. Learn more at energysavers.gov.
G-Morning, sunshine. Wakey, wakey. Text me. Are your parents home later? We can hang. LUV, love you. JK. Holla back, holla back, holla back. Are you with your friends? That's lame. We're in a huge fight right now. XO. What'd you dream about? Something I did? Are you on your way to the mall? I'm lonely. Nude pics. Send me some. Text me.
Experience St. Louis.
I'm Steve Potter. Welcome back to City Corner. Our guest today is New York Times bestselling author Ridley Pearson. He lives in St. Louis, not from here originally. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But his latest book is Red Room. It's part of his Risk series. Did I say that right?
Yeah, Risk Agent series.
Risk Agent series, right. And I just wanted to quote Greg Iles, who is a very well-known author, said this about you. Ridley Pearson's Risk Agent series has re-energized the international thriller. That's pretty high praise.
That's nice praise.
And you've been getting good reviews so far.
It's gotten terrific reviews. I'm really excited about that. I mean, you never know. That's a gamble when you put a book out there. And there are trade reviews that go out to all the booksellers and the buyers, and those are really important to the publisher and to the author. And we've gotten just glowing, starred reviews from
How do you take that? Generally, most things I read about
I
you
try to not see them, honestly.
Well, I
I
wanted to
spend my
ask-
life like this. Don't tell me!
I've talked to authors and actors before that purposely don't look at them.
Dave Barry's that way. He won't read a single one. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. I end up reading the ones that my publisher sends to me, and I think they filter them. But you have to have a thick skin in this business, and I've been in the business a long time, but you're also, I think by nature when you're a novelist, you're a sensitive person because you have to be able to play many roles in a book. And so you don't have shark skin. And if somebody comes on and just slams you for this or that, it hurts, you know, and you have to kind of learn, which I still am learning, to get around that and trust that they had a problem with it, but maybe that doesn't have to affect you.
During the break, I was telling you a story that I've been in broadcasting 30 years, and I got my first piece of hate mail just a couple of months ago, and it was rather jarring.
I didn't mean to send that, Steve.
I knew I recognized that return address on there.
You saw that handwriting?
Let's talk about you. It's really exciting that you live in St. Louis. You're not from here originally. You mentioned before you were born in New York.
I love St. Louis.
I think you grew up in Connecticut
Yes,
as a kid.
Greenwich, Connecticut.
But you lived here for some time.
Right.
Now, your wife was not from here, but she went to school here.
Yep, Marcel went to the Principia and then on to Principia College in Elsa, Illinois. And we were brought out here to sort of see the school many years ago now for a big weekend. And I fell in love with the area. It reminded me of where I'd grown up in Connecticut. And we knew at that point we lived near Sun Valley, Idaho, a ski resort. And it's a terrific area. We didn't really want to bring our kids up there, and we decided to try it here. We tried it for a year, and we've been here 14 years.
Wow. Is it exciting enough for you? I mean,
you
Ridley,
know-
the circles you travel in. and
Oh, I
everything.
tell you, the circle, Steve. You know, I wrote a lot about Seattle pre-Microsoft in my novels, and then Microsoft came in, which made the novels all the more, packed with information. But I feel like St. Louis is that early day Seattle. It's a place that a lot of people judged only by our old airport, which I now think looks a lot better, and they would fly through and go, I don't want to spend time in St. Louis. But you know, we have 38 museums, we have professional sports teams. I'm a huge Rams fan. We have wonderful theater. We have more movie theaters per capita than about anywhere, I feel like.
How long have you worked for the Chamber of Commerce?
Yeah, well, I could. I mean, I'm a firm, I think the only thing we need to still get straightened out here, and Southwest Airlines has done this to a large degree, is it has to be easier to get here and get out of here.
Right.
But once we get that worked out, this is an amazing place to bring up your kids.
And you're all over the place, so it's pretty good for you
Yeah,
if
it
you
is
need to
great
go to
for
New
me.
York or
Right.
LA.
And when I moved here, TWA was still operating.
Right.
And then I could go, to England. I could go anywhere straight from St. Louis.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about your life, and we have some pictures.
Oh, no.
Nothing too embarrassing.
Okay,
I don't think.
hope so.
This first is a group picture. You'll have to tell me exactly what it is. A group of your friends or colleagues, I suppose.
Oh, those are terrific authors, right. Disney gets a bunch of us together every year to try to sell our books at the Book Expo of America. And one year we, because I also write for young adults, The Red Room is a grown-up book. But that is Rick Riordan on the far left, who wrote Percy Jackson. And that's Owen Colfer next to me, and Jonathan Stroud between the two, all hugely best-selling authors. But we all got together. One year we realized that every celebrity out there was writing a kid's book. So for this big dinner in front of book buyers and bookstore owners, Rick Riordan played guitar and Dave Barry wrote the song. And we wrote a song that said, everybody's writing a gosh darn kids' book, although it wasn't gosh darn, and it brought the house down.
Speaking of your musical career, let's look at the next shot.
Oh my.
Now, you sang in a group along with such notable authors as Stephen King and Amy Tan, and maybe you'll tell me the rest
Scott
of them.
Turow, Mitch Albom, Greg Iles, James McBride in the center back row, who just won the National Book Award. Roy Blunt Jr. of Wait, Wait, Don't Tell Me is next to Dave Barry. And the woman sitting next to me, Kathy Goldmark, passed on last year, and we had been a band for 21 years at that point. We are the worst rock and roll band you have ever heard. We have played in St. Louis, but we raise money for charity, and we've raised almost $3 million over our 20 years.
Wow, and what do you play?
I play bass and sing. We all sing.
Sort of.
Yeah, exactly, and play, sort of. We are handicapped musicians. In fact, Roy Blunt Jr. tagged our genre as hard listening.
Now, you broke up for a while after the founder passed away.
We did. We just, once Kathy passed away, we felt like, what's the point of doing this? And we were invited to play at the Miami Book Festival last November, and we sort of reluctantly took that gig, and we went down and played. We had a blast, and we knew Kathy would want us to have fun, so we've accepted another gig now at a Tucson Book Festival in March.
Yeah, boy, how do you work that into your schedule? Jeez, I mean, when you're dealing
Well,
with...
that's the thing about this band.
It's not just you, it's
Right.
all these other people's schedules,
Right, and there's
too.
a tremendous amount of money it takes just to get us there and get our sound people there and all of that. So it's usually a philanthropic organization that foots the bill and organizes it a year and a half, 2 years out. And we all come together and make idiots of ourselves for a night and raise a bunch of money.
Funny you should use the word... I'm not going to use the word idiot, but let's take a
You
look
may
at...
use the word idiot, especially if it's associated with me, Steve.
Let's
But
look at
don't
this.
forget who sent you that hate mail.
I'll be checking my mailbox when I get home. Let's look at this next shot, and I want to know what this is all about.
You don't want to know. Oh, my goodness. Well, there's an idiot for you. I write a series of books called The Kingdom Keepers, which is about 5 kids who get inside Disney World after dark into the parks and battle the Disney villains. And I was recently on a book tour for The Kingdom Keepers. The 7th and final book in that series came out in April. And I was being filmed and videoed around Disney World, and we went inside one of these wonderful 3D shows called Disney PhilharMagic. And on the way out, I had the 3D glasses on, and somebody was filming me, and I put my face right into their lens and said, "Take the picture, I dare you." Well,
And they did.
That's how idiotic I look.
It's very becoming.
Thank you.
I have a bunch of
Becoming
things.
idiotic.
I have a bunch of things I want to get to before I run out of time. You just got back from Kenya.
I did.
Doing research.
I did a little over 2 weeks of research in Kenya for the next Risk Agent novel, To Follow the Red Room. There is a tragedy going on in this world that I was unaware of, which is that a little over 9 years ago, there were 5 million elephant in Africa. There are 150,000 now.
Wow.
If we let this go the way it's been going, our children will not be able to see an elephant except in a zoo. Same with the rhinoceros. There were 1,000 rhinoceros killed in South Africa alone last year. Elephants are dying at the rate of 1 every 4 hours to poachers' bullets. They take the ivory.
Right? Yeah.
In the case of the rhino horn, each rhino horn is worth close to $900,000.
What?
It was only worth like $10,000 6 years ago.
Wow.
So there's some really huge international social issues. There is amazing coordination and organized crime behind this, and that's what the next book will be about.
Wow. Well, you have other issues that you're pretty passionate.
I have so many issues. I'm glad this is a couch.
Boy, does
Oh,
Ridley...
you mean issues that
Ridley-
I care about? Yeah.
Just sit back and tell me about
Yeah,
your
okay.
issues.
Well, there was that time my brother, no.
You started an organization called America Scorers.
Well, I started an affiliate, yes.
St. Louis.
Yeah, right, in St. Louis. Some friends, David Walters and Pete Spanos and I, put together America Scores St. Louis. It's one of 13 affiliates in the country. We always need funding, St. Louis, americascoresstlouis.org. What we do is we bring soccer and literacy together in school programs, usually inner city schools around St. Louis. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we provide fields, uniforms, coaches, and these kids play soccer together in schools that no longer have after-school athletics. And Tuesday and Thursday, they stay in the school after hours, and they write poetry and lyrics to rap music. We are proud to say that all of their grade averages are going up over a grade and a half across the board. They become community citizens. It's really just a terrific program.
Probably have a good website that people can check out, right?
AmericascoresSt.Louis.org.
AmericascoresSt.Louis.org. Well, speaking of students and things, here we go again.
Here we
in
go
the news
again.
recently, a couple of more horrifying stories.
It's about every 3 weeks that we hear about a school shooting. And I once served on an FBI task force to try to catch the Washington sniper. I was honored to do that, and nothing I did had any effect on that. But I really think now it's, that we're running out of options how to stop this, and I think we need to enlist the students' help. So I'm going to try to start using social media and my outreach to the Kingdom Keepers kids. I have millions of readers. And try to get kids involved in listening to their friends, in listening to what they hear in the cafeteria, and seeing if we can't get proactive about this and stop these shootings when they're only still a twinkle in somebody's eye, because it has got to stop. I don't care what we do overseas as a country. If we can't stop shootings in our own schools, we're doing something way wrong here.
Yeah, and you talk about people talking. That's the thing. So many people know about these events ahead of time, or
I
hear
know.
things, and then I guess they dismiss it or don't take it seriously, or whatever it might be.
So I want to, this was just a harebrained idea I had this morning, but I want to start a thing like putting an armored vest on every student and calling it Value Educated Students Talk, and getting them to understand values, that human life is a value we must protect, and that if they'll only talk to their parents and say, I heard something today, I don't know if it's anything, I'm not blaming anybody, but is this something you should talk to Tommy's parents about? That's all we need, is open your ears and stop thinking that your parents are the enemy and talk to your parents.
Well, Ridley, whether people want to know about those issues you're involved in, or about Peter and the Starcatchers, or the Kingdom Keepers, wherever it is, you have a great website. And we'll have
Thanks,
some.
yeah, it's a really fun website, ridleypearson.com.
Yeah, we're going to have that come up in just a second. People
Great.
can check it out.
Great.
Meanwhile, your latest book is part of the Risk Agent novel series. It's The Red Room, Ridley Pearson. It's out. You should check it out. Thank you so much, Ridley, for taking the time to join us
Thanks so
today.
much, Stephen. I won't send you any more letters.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
I'll be opening my envelopes very carefully, though, from now on. Appreciate that. Ridley Pearson.
Thank you.
I'm Steve Potter. That's it for this edition of City Corner. Join us next time. Bye.